Hi, everyone. Welcome to Immigration Chat with me, Attorney Lillian. So, today I will be going over the questions you should be expecting during your marriage based immigration interview. Okay, that's what we'll be going over today. If you are joining me today, just know you can ask me any questions you want in the comments, and I will be answering those live as well. But in the meantime, while I am waiting for your questions, I will be going through the questions you should be expecting during your marriage based interview. Okay, I want you to be prepared. I want you to know exactly what you should be expecting, and I want you to pass your interview and get your green card. Okay, so I am Attorney Lillian Chukura. I am the owner and attorney at Lily Legal. And at Lily Legal, we basically help our clients get immigration status for themselves and for their family. So if you are interested in meeting with me personally, please feel free to do so. My information is on the screen and in the contacts. So let's get started because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of questions. I'm going to go through different categories of questions, and just know that during your interview, you could be asked, 5 questions, or it could be a 2-hour interview, right? So these are the type of questions you should be expecting, right, and be prepared for. But just know you might not get these exact questions, but these are generally what you should be preparing yourself for. Okay, so thank you if you are joining me. If you are watching this in the replay, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave your questions in the comments. I do go back and respond to your questions, so feel free to do that as well. So you get into your marriage interview and you want to know, and the officer basically starts asking you questions. Hi, Faith, welcome. As always, thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, you already know to put that in the comments. So the first questions that you're going to get from the officer is going to be based on the forms that you filed, right? So in a marriage-based case, you're filing the relative petition, the green card application, and the officer is going to go through both those forms because they want to know that, well, one, you know what's in your forms, the information in the forms are still accurate, and that you know and that the officer can sign off and say, okay, this is it. This is everything that we need to put in the forms. If there's anything missing, the officer can ask you during the interview. So, and let's say you moved or something changed, you can always, always update that during the interview. Okay, so welcome to my people in Liberia. Welcome to the live. And I want to do a quick shout out to Peace TV for streaming this live on their page as well. Thank you so much. And I am so, so appreciative for the collaboration. So you get there, they already went through your forms, everything is accurate, you sign off. Now they get into the actual questions of your relationship. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome. So, first question is typically, how did you meet your spouse? When did you meet? How did you meet? Where did you go on your first date? Those type of questions. So that is very important. So it's, where did you meet? Where did you go on your first date? Where did you, who introduced you to each other? How did you even meet each other? I've had clients that met on social media, on dating apps, that were introduced by family members. All of those are good answers. You just have to be honest about how you met your spouse. Some of them, I've had clients that are like, oh, we met on this dating app. It's a little embarrassing. I'm like, it's fine, right? Even though some of the questions, it might be a little embarrassing, but the truth usually is the truth is the best answer to these questions. So from there, they will ask, how your spouse propose to you? Did they propose? You know, they really just want to get to know your relationship, the beginning stages of your relationship. Okay. Now, your answers to these questions can lead to other questions that I might not cover. So, for example, if they ask, where did you go on your first date? And you said, we went to a restaurant. Which restaurant? What was the date that you went? If you can't remember the date, they might ask, was it spring, summer, winter, that kind of thing. So just know your answers can lead to other questions, because they want to. The goal of the interview is to make sure that you and your spouse know each other, and basically to convince the officer that your marriage is real. So if you say that your first date was at Six Flags and your spouse says that your first date was at Olive Garden, you see how that's a problem. Okay. So that's kind of what they're trying to get at with these types of questions. Now, the next set of questions is the wedding, right? When did you get married? Where did you get married? How many people were there? Did you have a reception? Did you have bridesmaids? Who was your groomsman? Those type of questions, again, is about your relationship, right? Did you have a reception? If you didn't, that's fine. So people always ask me, are we supposed to have like a big wedding or anything like that? No. Going to City Hall and getting married is perfectly fine. I've had plenty of clients that just did that and now have their green card. So that is not what they're trying to get at with these questions. They're not trying to, guilt you because you didn't have a big lavish wedding. They're basically trying to see what details can they get out of you, that when they have your spouse come into the room and they ask your spouse the same questions, are your answers going to match? Okay, so that's what they're really, really getting at with some of these questions. Now we get into your daily life, right? What you do on a daily basis in your life. So who gets up first? How many alarms do you set if you set an alarm, right? Which side of the bed do you sleep on? And my favorite question that usually is the biggest, it's one of those questions that really, really gets people stuck, is if this office was your bedroom and the door is where the door of the office is, where would your bed be? Where do you have windows? Where would the windows be? So they're basically trying to figure out, do you know your bedroom, right, that you're sharing with your spouse? And is your spouse going to give the exact same description? Now, what I tell people is to feel free when this question comes to stand up, right? Stand up and actually visualize it and point out things. Sometimes when you're sitting and you think you can't really move, you can always ask, hey, can I stand? And so that I can visually, I can visualize what the bedroom would look like in this space. Okay, so just know you might get that question, and it is one question that I always cover with my clients, because it's one of the places that really, really getting this question wrong can lead to issues. Okay, so I really cover this and make sure that we all understand that it's not just thinking about the office or where things would be. It's where's the door, where's the windows, and you can literally walk around or at least stand up and point them out in the office just to help you. If you need to draw it out, draw it out. It's okay. I tell people whatever helps you to answer this question accurately, do that. Okay. And once you're able to answer that question, it's usually, like I said, that's one of the questions that they really use to trip you up at the interview. So really paying attention, taking your time to answer questions is one of the most important things you can do for yourself during the interview. So sometimes people jump the gun, the officer is asking a question and they start answering before the officer is done. And they don't even understand the question that was asked. What I advise my clients to do is, first off, before you answer a question, make sure you understand the question. If you don't understand the question, ask the officer to explain what they mean. Sometimes officers will use words that you don't understand, especially as a foreign national, right? I'm from Nigeria. There's certain words that when I first came here, I did not understand what it means in the US context. I knew what it meant in Nigeria when we're talking about it, but in the US context, I did not know what some of those words mean. And you might be in the same boat. And if you are, you can ask the officer to explain what they mean by that, what that word means, right? And they will tell you. Okay, don't be scared of the officers. Don't be scared to ask them questions. The clearer you are about the question, the better your answer will be. So it's really important. They really want to know your answer. So it's really important that you get clear on what the question is. Now, we're still on the daily life. So who does the dishes? Who cooks? When do you get home from work? When do you go to work? Where do you work? Where does your spouse work? If you have kids, do the kids go to daycare? What daycare? If they go to school, which school? And if they're getting on the school bus, what time does their school bus come? And where does their school bus pick them up? Okay, so it can really get detailed during the interview. Again, depending on your answer, it could lead to like 5 other questions. Okay, so just be prepared for that. For my people that don't remember anything about their home, please just walk around and just be like, okay, so this is here, this is there. Like, where's the spare toilet paper? Where do we put that? In some households, one spouse might do all the household duties, right? And the other spouse doesn't really know how things work in the home. They just know when they get home, there's food, there's, they can take a shower, there's always things available. But how they get there, how things get resolved, they don't really know. For immigration purposes, you need to know, okay? You need to know, you need to pay attention. That's really, if you take nothing else out of this, you need to know where things are in your home, okay? And then nighttime routine. What size is your bed? What color is your comforter? How many windows are in your bedroom? What type of toothpaste do you use? Do you watch TV? And then if your spouse watches TV, what type of TV shows do they like? Right? If they read books, what kind of books are they reading? What was the last book they read? Right? So it's those kind of questions that people really have to pay attention, like I said. And then about your home. Do you live in an apartment or a house? Right? Do you have a mortgage or rent? How much is your rent? How much is your mortgage? If you have trash picked up, what day of the week is your trash picked up? Right? How many bedrooms in the house? How many bathrooms? The kitchen, do you have gas or electric? Right? Who does the cooking? What did you eat last night? What did you eat the weekend before your interview? What did you do the weekend before your interview? Right. These are the questions that I have had officers ask my clients. So when I'm giving you this, it's basically, this is what I have seen them ask. It doesn't mean you're going to get all these questions. I haven't had one client that got every single question on this list, but just know when they're asking these questions, their goal is to figure out if you and your spouse are on the same page, right? If you and your spouse know each other, know everything about each other, right? The questions about your home is basically geared towards figuring out if you actually live together, right? That's one of the requirements of filing a marriage-based visa, is you and your spouse live together. That's one of the requirements. So some of these questions about your bed sheets, your comforter, color of the walls, what side of the bed do you sleep on, what type of bed do you have, what size of bed do you have, where's the windows, all those questions are really trying to get to whether you two actually live in the same home. So that's why I say pay attention to your home if you haven't before. When you're filing for, you know, when you're filing for immigration benefits, just understand that what works for everyone won't work for you, right? So if you are a US citizen and you're married to a US citizen, no one is really caring if you know what color your comforter is, or if you remember what you ate last night. But as an immigrant filing to get a green card through your marriage, those are things that you're required to pay attention to. Okay? So again, where you go grocery shopping is on my list. If you have a grill in your house, if you have a yard, balcony, things like that. And then we get into family. This is where you can really mess up. I know I said that about other things, but this is where you can really, really mess up if you don't know each other's family. So, and by that, I don't mean that you talk to them every day on the phone and you all are just close, right? But you should know who their parents are, if they have siblings, who their siblings are, where they live, if their siblings have kids. You should know those things. Has your spouse been married before? Do they have children from a previous relationship? You should know that. Okay. And this goes without saying clearly, but you should know where your spouse was born, their date of birth. Okay. You should know that. I'm sorry. I've had people be like, I can't remember. Well, immigration purposes, you need to remember where your spouse is from and their date of birth. And I get this. The next thing is, what if I can't pronounce it right? That's fine. Even if you can't pronounce it right, pronounce it as well as you can. And I've had people be like, well, I can spell it, I just can't pronounce it the way my spouse pronounces it. That's fine. The officer might, if you say that, the officer might just have you spell it. But it's fine that if you don't know how to say it with a proper accent or anything like that, it's perfectly fine. They just need to know that you know the names and all of that. Okay. So now, holidays. Do you celebrate Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, anything like that? Whatever you celebrate, you should know the last time you did it. You should know, if you got each other gifts for your birthdays, for Christmas, for any other thing you were celebrating. You should know. What did you do for New Year's? Right? Did you spend it together? Did you spend it with family? Did you go to a party? You should know all of this. And like I said, you should know if your spouse has brothers and sisters, if they have nieces and nephews, what their names are, not just that they have it, but that you know their names. Again, you're not required to have the closest relationship with your own family, and your husband is not, or your spouse is not required to also have a close relationship with their family, but you should at least know about each other's family. Now, if you live, this is another thing. If you live with one of your spouse's family members, you should know who, their name, what they do, when they're home, when they're not home, what, I would say know where they work. Have a conversation. That's all I'm saying. Have a conversation. Get to know each other if you're living in the same household, because that's a question that will be asked. If you're living with, let's say, your spouse's parents, a question might be, do they work? Where do they work? What hours do they work? Because they want to know if you are really engaging with each other and with each other's families. Okay. And okay, I'm just going to stop here and just give a quick shout out to my Liberians watching from Liberia. I'm just going to put you on the screen. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for watching today. And if you are here watching and you have questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments as well. Okay. We're almost done. Again, like I said, when I do these with my clients, I usually block off 2 hours of time. We might get it done in an hour, but I usually block off 2 hours because something might come up and we need to basically discuss something else. So I usually block off time when I go through these with my clients. Now, like I said, celebrations, you need to know, what did you do for your anniversary? When is your anniversary, right? Um, all those things. What was the last movie you seen together? If you so let's say you're in the interview and you say, oh, we don't really watch movies that much. We my spouse likes watching sports. Now the question is, right, additional questions come up. What type of sports does he watch? Oh, he likes soccer. Okay. Does he have a favorite team? Right? It just, the questions rolls that way because now they know, okay, yes, you said your spouse likes soccer. Their team is, I'm gonna choose mine, Manchester United. And they are really huge fans of Manchester United. Great. Now when your spouse comes in and they ask your spouse, okay, do you like any type of sports? Oh, I like soccer. Okay, what's your team? And he says Arsenal. Guys, right? That's a problem. That is a big problem. There's a huge difference between a Manchester United fan and an Arsenal fan. Okay, so it's those type of little details that you really need to pay attention to. Okay, so, and never, side note, right? This is completely side note. Don't confuse your spouse's teams. Do not. That's a problem. Beyond immigration, that's a problem. But yeah, so those are the, and what I typically tell people is when we're preparing for these, I do not give these questions to my clients in advance of doing their mock interview. So I'll tell you how I work. So once we know that your interview date is set, I basically have my clients, we schedule a time for them to come in and do this mock interview where we go through basically like I'm the officer and they're there for their interview. Like I said, usually block off 2 hours for this. And we go through their forms, these questions, get them really, asked. So the US citizen is the one coming in first. Every single time, if you two are separated, the US citizen is getting into the office first with the officer. So whatever the US citizen says is going to be checked against what the non-US citizen spouse is going to say, right? So that's really the process. So you get there to your interview, you check in, you wait, the officer calls you, they have your US citizen spouse come in first. They ask them, all the questions that they want to ask. And sometimes, I will say this, I've had cases where people were not really asked that many questions. I've had interviews where, because we've prepared the application so well, and my clients had so many documents, right, to prove their relationship, that the interview process itself, right, you have to wait to be called and all of that. But the actual interview with the officer lasted like 15 minutes. So again, that's just because you have a lot of documents going into it. So the more you have to prove your relationship, the less hectic the questions are going to be. The interview then becomes, you really can mess it up or it can seal the deal. Okay, so that's really where the interview comes in. So if you send in a lot of documents and the office is looking through the documents and they're like, oh, they live together, they've traveled together, they have children together, oh, this is going to be a quick interview, right? That's what's going on in the office's mind. If you don't have children together, they're like, let's see if they know these things about each other. And if you're able to answer these questions, bring the spouse in, ask them the same questions, and you two are on the same page, you're getting approved. So it's really, the interview is really the core, the final step, really, on you getting approved or not approved. Okay. If you go through the interview and the officer doesn't approve you, that does not mean you will not get your green card. It just means the officer needs more information before they're able to approve you. So even though the interview is the last step for the officer to either approve or do more research on your case, if the officer tells you, okay, you're going to get a decision in the mail, that's fine, because that means the officer is not going to outright deny your case, and they're going to ask you more questions through a letter, and then you can respond to that. Okay, so prepare for your interview. Prepare for your interview. Prepare for your interview. Do not go to the interview without preparing. Did I say prepare enough time for you guys? Okay, so that is all I have for you today. If you don't have any questions, I think we're good and I can end this here. And I want to thank you all for joining me. And if you're watching this on the replay, as always, leave your questions in the comments and I will come back and respond to you. If you want to work with me, my information is on the screen and in the description box. Feel free to reach out. And as always, like, share, and if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to subscribe. And yes, thank you so much and have a great rest of your week. And I will see you next week for another immigration chat. Bye for now.